welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica with Syosset Libraries Turn the Page podcast, and today we have a guest. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us who you represent?
Absolutely. My name is Sarah High, and I'm the Partnerships Manager for Bookshop.org.
So Bookshop.org is very cool. Okay, so please tell us first what Bookshop.org is, and I know that I first started myself hearing about bookshop.org right as the pandemic began to hit. But clearly, I don't believe that, maybe because I'm not an online retailer, I was going to say I don't believe that things like this just rise out of nowhere. So I'm curious if you were all planning this before, like how long the planning of Bookshop began.
Absolutely. So just a bit of background. Andy Hunter is our founder and CEO, and he actually thought up Bookshop in the mid 2010s, and he actually brought it to the ABA first to as a way to revamp IndieBound completely, because he noticed that IndieBound was a way for authors, publishers, and people of the literary community to link to bookstores. But it wasn't the most user-friendly, sleekest way to purchase a book or find a bookstore. So he went to the ABA, asked if he could do some revamping and completely shift it to a new site and make it much more e-commerce friendly and user-friendly again. And they, for legal reasons, are a trade organization and could not completely jump on board with with Bookshop, so they gave him their blessing and were sort of like, go run with this idea and we'll be behind you 100%. So the ABA is partnered closely with us, and they're invested in Bookshop as well, but Bookshop is a B corporation, and we again started 2015, but really started getting everything going last summer when I came on board and the other two first employees came on board. And then we ramped up by going to all the regionals for the bookstores across the country last fall to spread the word, tell them about what this new e-commerce site was going to be. And then we launched January 28th, strangely right before all of this, the world shut down.
Yeah.
And it has been, as I'm sure you might have noticed, it's been it was a big lifeline for a lot of bookstores between March and till now when the bookstores are starting to open up. So it's been pretty amazing to watch what's been happening so quickly.
Just for our listeners, so what sets bookshop.org apart from, say, another online retailer, which we will not name, but everybody knows what it is?
Definitely. Sure. So we are completely indie bookstore friendly. They are our first priority, and we give 10 to 30% of all of the sales on our site directly to independent bookstores across the country. And we actually give away most of our profits and are able to take the additional 30% of our sales to run our platform. We have a very thin staff, are running really well with not having a lot of people, but we're basically, our entire mission and goal is to keep indie bookstores alive and thriving. So they are our first priority. A lot of bookstores use us as their sole e-commerce site. A lot of them use us as a tool in addition to their indie commerce, indie light sites, which is wonderful. So our first priority is for bookstores to use us if they wish, and for people in the book community to link to us over other online retailers. as a socially conscious way to consume while not undermining your local independent bookstore.
I'm a huge fan of bookstores,
Yay.
and I'm a librarian.
Yes,
And
wonderful.
yeah, there seems to, in some circles, there is a misconception that bookstores and libraries are sort of on opposite ends, ready to charge each other with, like pitchforks, but I really don't believe that's the case at all. There is not one librarian I know that does not love bookstores. And on the other end, most booksellers seem to really love libraries. Several of my colleagues worked at Borders, which I actually worked at before I became a librarian. I know that that's a big box store, but there was a very nice Borders in this community and throughout Long Island. And it kind of gave a bunch of booksellers there just this little seed that they wanted to work with books in another capacity. So we we move through the library circles, and we do often see people who we knew from the bookselling community becoming one of us. We have some very nice little independent bookstores on the island, including Book Review in Huntington, New York.
Nice.
And personally, when my husband and children and I travel anywhere, one of our destinations is always whatever indie bookstore is in town.
Same here.
So, this is just a really cool initiative. And the fact that everything sort of arose or started to get going during the pandemic is almost like some sort, like a lifeboat, like you said, a lifeline. How many indie bookstores do you work with?
That is a great question. I work with about 950 stores who are, so we have 950 stores in the 10% profit pool, which is any ABA bookstore with a physical location who wants to share the kind of the dividends of a 10% of all of the non-bookstore sales on our site. So this is for bigger stores who kind of already have a really robust online platform to be involved with Bookshop while not having a page with us. So they can be solely in the profit pool. And I work with about 950 stores on that end. But you can also be in the pool and have a shop page with us completely free to have an e-commerce site. And I work with around 875 stores on that end, which is really, really wonderful. And I have been amazed to see the growth in that end. I remember when we were first getting ramped up, Andy was like, I would like you to have, around 30 stores on the platform.
Wow.
So we did start with at least 30, but now we're at around 875, which is amazing. So
it really is. And it's crazy that the idea began like 10 years ago. And it took so long to get going, although I am extremely grateful that it happened. And I mean, maybe, like things just spread like wildfire virally about it, to the point that several of the authors that we've interviewed on Turn the Page, immediately when they say, you can find my books in your library or go to bookshop.org.
Awesome. That's so great.
Which is very cool because, authors want to support independent bookstores as well. So it's sort of become just default for them. And I know that in online programming, we also try to plug Bookshop as well. Awesome. Because of the special relationship between bookstores and libraries that I mentioned before. I mean, we always mention that your books are available in libraries. You can download them through Overdrive. However, if the wait is too long, or if this is a book you would like to own, bookshop.org is an online bookseller that benefits independent bookstores. So do you have I know you can't pick favorites, and I get that. However, are there some independent bookstores that you would consider specific tourist attractions, like ones that if you're in a certain area, you absolutely must go there?
That is such a great but difficult question. So I do the same thing that you do, Jessica, and I go to any indie I can in whatever city I'm in. So again, will be very difficult to choose my favorites. But in the New York area, I actually used to be a bookseller myself, like you were, and I worked at Book Culture in Manhattan on 114 and Broadway. So Book Culture will always be very near and dear to my heart. And in the Bronx is the Lit Bar, which is the only bookstore in the Bronx, and it's Black-owned, female-owned, incredible bookstore that I love. And they are on bookshop.org if you'd like to support them.
Awesome.
So the Lit Bar is wonderful, wonderful.
Does it sell alcohol as well?
Yes, it's also a bar. I know.
Awesome.
It's wonderful. I mean, I went there right before the pandemic. I went there on Friday, March 13th.
When we still thought this was like gonna just blow over in a few weeks.
Exactly. And Noel Santos, the owner, was wonderful and showed me around. And I did not, partake in the wine because it was early in the day, but such a great atmosphere, incredible bookstore, wonderful neighborhood. I love that bookstore very much. But outside of New York, of course, Powell's in Portland is
amazing.
Just a dream. It's a labyrinth of everything you'd ever want to look for in a bookstore. So big, so exciting. You can get lost. I also really love Charm City Books in Baltimore. That's a really great bookstore. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm looking it up.
Very good bookstore. And I'm from Georgia originally, so I have some Atlanta and Atlanta suburb favorites as well, like Acapella Books in Atlanta, wonderful bookstore. And then in my community, there's Johns Creek Books and Read It Again Books, and they are both on Bookshop as well, which is really exciting. So again, too hard to pick all my favorites, but those are just very few of some of the bookstores I love.
So I have one that I adore. It is in Western Massachusetts or in the Pioneer Valley called Montague Book Mill. Have you been there?
I have not.
It is beautiful. So Montague Book Mill is, I think their tagline is something like books. Hang on a second. I have to look this up because I don't actually want to butcher this. Or the book mill. So, books you don't need in a place you can't find.
Ooh, I love that.
40,000 books and one waterfall. So Montague Book Mill is in Montague, Massachusetts, and it is really off the beaten path, but it is definitely a trip worth taking if you're, say, in the Amherst area. I know tons of people go to college up there. I don't know if the campuses are open now, but eventually they will be again. Montague is so pretty, and it is just like almost like a little cottage with several levels of used books and new books. And it has an adjacent music and movie shop. And then below it, there is a little restaurant that overlooks a waterfall. And the bookstore itself has a little cafe with like nice little sandwiches. So that is one of my favorite places.
That is incredible.
There's also Rainbow Books in Delaware, Newark, Delaware, which I think is like Rainbow Books, music, and tons of other stuff now.
I'm looking all these up just so you know.
Yeah.
For future reference.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, Montague. Now that actually brings up a point. Do you deal with used books or is it all new?
That's a great question. So we're distributed solely through Ingram at this time,
Okay.
which means any new book. But if a book is not available through Ingram, we source used books through Biblio. So, of course, any used bookstore can join our platform if they have a physical location and an ABA membership. But if they would also like to sell their used books, they can do that through Biblio, which is pretty cool.
Oh, that is very cool. There's so much to the industry.
Yes.
And
Yes.
both sides of the industry that people don't necessarily realize.
Totally.
Anyway, so how much has bookstore.org raised at this, like thus far, for independent bookstores?
We have, so actually, anytime you are curious about this, you can go to our homepage, bookshop.org, and see the little ticker just beneath the search bar and the titles in the support online bookstores. You can see in that little white ticker, we have raised so far $6,001,313.27 for local bookstores, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's really just vital to their survival.
Yeah, we're excited about that. We're very proud of that, and none of that that's all for the indies, which is why we're here.
So do you have any books that you've read recently that you love?
I love this question. Again, such a hard question, but I love this question. I loved Writers and Lovers by Lily King earlier this year. I can't even tell time anymore.
No, nobody can. There's nothing that even when we go to work, time just sort of runs on a different meter than it normally would.
Exactly. I'm trying to think when I picked up the galley of this book and met Lily King. She was wonderful. She gave me the galley of this book. I think it was actually last December, I want to say. Anyway, before the pandemic hit, at one of the wonderful regionals, picked up this book, read it earlier this year. It is beautifully written, a work of fiction about a young woman who's living in Boston, who's a struggling waiter and a writer. And you kind of follow her through her various heartbreaks, and she's not very close to her parents, and you're just rooting for her the entire time. And you're really, just again, the writing is phenomenal, so super engrossing, and the ending is jovial and happy, which is something I think we need right now.
Yeah.
So I loved that book.
And what was it called again?
Writers and Lovers.
Writers and Lovers. Cool. I actually am not aware of that one.
It's super, super good, from Grove Atlantic. I also loved Terrence Hayes' American Sonnets for My Past and Future Assassins. Incredible work of poetry that I read very quickly earlier this year. I'm currently reading Outlander, the first one. That is
quite the undertaking.
I know, it really is an undertaking, and I didn't realize it when I first picked it up, but
it's a commitment.
Long. It is
to a lot of pages.
And I was reading it with a friend, and she, of course, finished it weeks ago, and I'm still, in the last third of the book. But I already also started watching the show as inspiration to keep going. But I do, I've been enjoying it. It's just very, very long. And I've been finding it kind of more difficult to take on longer works during this time, just because I feel like my brain needs something a bit shorter.
That, I think, is something we've actually heard from a lot of people.
Absolutely. But what about you, Jessica? Have you been reading anything that you recommend?
Oh, absolutely. So the cool thing about this podcast is that while our own listeners listen, obviously it's also PR for bookshop.org. So if anybody who's listening just to learn about bookshop.org cares what a librarian has to say, have been reading a lot of books lately. And some of these authors are either going to be on upcoming episodes or have been already. So let's see. So my favorite books of the summer are A Burning by Megha Majumdar.
I'm actually good friends with Megha. Yes.
Oh, she interviewed with us, and she
Really?
is, I think that episode is coming up sometime soon, and it was one of the absolute best books I've read of the summer. It is
Wow.
the story of Javon, and then Lovely and P.T. Sir, three characters, but Javon, I would say, is the central character from which everything blooms.
Mm-hmm.
A young Muslim woman living in India from a poor family who is aspiring to be middle class, and she makes a comment that is considered politically charged on Facebook, and things just spiral into a burning. And it's a really good book. So
That's
good.
phenomenal. I actually haven't read it yet, but I have it on my shelf, and I adore Megha so much, and I can't wait to
She's
read
wonderful. She's so good. Another book, and this book is coming out. These two other books that I'm going to read, I read ARCs of, and they're coming out. One is When No One's Watching by Alyssa Cole.
it.
And that
I don't know
one
about this one.
is, I always like when I pitch it to people, pitch it because it's not my book, but when people say, well, what's it about? I usually say, think Get Out, but with gentrification in Brooklyn.
Oh, I love that.
It's
I mean, I
phenomenal.
don't love that, but I love the premise.
It's good. It's got pretty
that sounds
much
great.
everything you would want from a thriller, plus maybe a little bit more. And it's not like and not to knock anything, because I love just a good, like mainstream thriller, but it has the whole aspect of race relations and just how neighborhoods change and how it affects the people who were living there before they began to change. And it's good. It's so good. So good.
And
Love
it comes
it.
out September 1st, I'm seeing.
September 1st, yes.
Awesome.
And then another one that I recently read, and I believe it comes out in October. The book is by P. Jelly Clark, and it's called Ring Shout.
Okay.
And it's basically like, people keep talking about there's supposed to be a Buffy reboot, and I was a big Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. This could take the place of it, and I would be super happy. Okay, so the book takes place in Macon, Georgia, and it takes place around the time that the movie Birth of the Nation came out. And
Wow.
The premise is that the Ku Klux Klan, are actually demons that affect people through their hate. That's how they get in, and they feed on it. And Marseille, who is the main character, is almost like the Slayer. She
awesome.
goes hunting with her friends, Chef, aka Cordelia, which actually makes me wonder if there is a nod to Buffy in it. I will have to ask the author when I interview him.
Awesome.
Anyway, so Marseille and her friends go hunting the Ku Kluxes, they're called, and they can see the demon inside the people. Not everybody sees that they have turned, especially not, the most of the, I would say, grand majority of the white population do not see the demon inside of them. But Marseille and her compatriots, they do, and they hunt them. However, they are recruited through a spell, which is Birth of a Nation. The movie has this effect where it makes them the people who watch it ground for hate and it is almost like an incantation which invites the Ku Kluxes in.
Wow.
It is so good. It is so, so good. And it leaves you with the opening for a sequel, which is going to take on another media figure. And I don't want to say what or who it is, but I cannot wait until the next
That's
one.
awesome.
So, so good. And that doesn't come out until October, but it's amazing and it should be read.
Absolutely. And as a fellow Georgian, I feel like it is my duty to read this book.
It's really so, so good. It's one of those that came across my radar as I was looking through ARCs and I was like, that's a really interesting premise. And it was, and it just
Absolutely.
exceeded all expectations. So anyway, okay, so getting back to bookshop.org. So right now do you sell merchandise or are you just focused on the books?
So that is another wonderful question. Anything through Ingram is available through Bookshop. So we do have some puzzles. We have out of print items such as socks, totes. I think some keychains in there.
Their
So we
stuff
do
is
have
super
some
cute.
merch. I love out of print stuff. Yes. So not too much merch at the moment, but again, anything through Ingram anything that Ingram has, we have. So actually, if you look at the Bookshop Nashville's page on Bookshop, they have this list called Boredom Busters, which I really love. And they have a bunch of great puzzles and boredom busters that you can busy yourself with throughout the fall and winter.
So I guess the question at this point that is begging, and I'm curious what the answer will be, do you see Bookshop remaining specifically just very like literary centric? Because as we know, other online booksellers began with books and sort of became everything else. Are you looking to just remain with your heart with books?
That is a really good question. In my heart of hearts, we remain with books forever. But we may expand to help other small businesses as well, which I think would also be amazing, like hardware stores, toy stores.
That's
that
actually
sort of,
fabulous.
yeah, I do. Yeah. I think so too. But again, my heart of heart is always prioritizing the bookstores and the books. So, and that's my role as partnerships manager at Bookshop, is to take care of the booksellers on our site. So
yeah,
that will always be my what I prefer and what I love, but we might be expanding to other businesses in the future.
I'm assuming that most of the booksellers have been very much happy with this. Did you find any difficulty getting them to join up?
That is a really good question as well. So some bookstores, again, have such robust online web presences that they don't need bookshop.org, which is completely fine. They can join our 10% profit pool payout, or they can, just be an ally from afar, which we're okay with either of those. But the skepticism lies in, I think, just knowing that we are here to support bookstores first and foremost, and that we're not going to be the next Amazon. We're not going to try to take over the world in the bookstores. I mean, our entire mission is to support bookstores so they can survive and thrive for years to come. And it's actually written in our bylaws that we can never sell to the top 10 vendors of the United States. So even if we wanted to, which we don't, we can't sell to Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble, any of the big giants. So that's just something I always want to remind the kind of skeptics out there, is that we are a united front to help indie bookstores, and we have no intent to become Amazon-like, if you will. So
thank you so much. This has been a really fun interview.
Good. Jessica, anytime you want to have me on again, I have had so much fun.
Once again, this was Jessica with my guest.
Sarah, hi, from bookshop.org. And sorry if you can hear pitter patter in the distance. That is my cat being rambunctious.
Oh, nice cat. What's your cat's name?
His name is Louie, and he is all black and just my best friend.
Oh, we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.